Alright, so today I'm going to be doing brakes on this car. I'm kind of going to show how to take the tire off at the same time. So right now I have a jack under the car and I use a 4-way lug wrench, okay, but you could use a regular lug wrench that comes with the car. It's like a bar with an angle on it. But I always use gloves as often as I can when I'm doing brakes, just for the simple fact that they've got all that brake dust on it and it's supposed to cause cancer. It's kind of hard to wash off your hands, whatever. So, you know, throwing some of these. Basically, there's not a whole lot to brakes. There's not a whole lot to changing a tire. But if you don't know, well, then you're stuck going to somebody who knows how and paying them. So, for this right here, just so that you know, if you're on the side of the road, it's best to go ahead and jack up the car just a bit so that this tire is still touching the ground, okay, if we're talking about a tire change. And then you're going to go ahead and take off the hubcap. Now I can use my hands. I could just pull this thing off, and I'm showing you that there's a little hole in this part of the hubcap for a screwdriver or something to pry, and you just pry off. It's not going to hurt it. And there's a ring in here. Every hubcap's different, but they all come off the same. They just pop off. Alright, take that, get it out of the way. I'm going to try not to make this take too long. Now I break them loose just like this, just a bit, just because the tire will turn if it's not jacked up, you understand? Now I'm just going around on this, but whenever you tighten them back up, you're going to want to hand tighten them while it's off the ground as tight as you can. Snug them up a bit with this or your regular lug wrench, and then you're going to tighten them. If there's 5 lugs, you go in a star type pattern. So you go this one, then the one across from it whenever you're finishing tightening them up. Okay, once you get them hand tight, tighten that one, okay, then that one, and that one. On a 5 lug, it's going to be here, 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 you know, go across from it, and that's when you're finishing tightening them up. But for now, break them off enough. It's not going to hurt anything. If they're a little too loose, at least break them loose so that the tire doesn't spin. Now I'm going to go back behind the car, jack it up a couple more inches so it's off the ground, pull this tire off, and I'm going to work on the brakes. Here we go. Now, basically the idea on taking off the tire and putting on another one is because you'll have a flat. So keep in mind, if the tire is flat, you're going to have to jack it up more than just this much off the ground with your jack, because your new tire is going to be taller. Okay, unless you're putting on the donut, then it might be just about the same size or smaller than even with a flat tire. You just want to get it up off the ground high enough to where it's at least about that far off the ground, especially if you got a flat tire, maybe that far. Alright, so finish this up. That's why these are easy. That's why I like these style lug wrenches, you know. And yours may not come off quite that easy depending on how old the vehicle is, but I maintain mine pretty good, so piece of cake. Alright, finish taking them off by hand and put them. The best thing to do is take your hubcap, because everybody loses lug nuts on the side of the road. Take and put your hubcap out of your way, or you're not going to be stepping on it. Of course, it ain't no big deal about getting it scratched up on grass, but I got to be careful on this pavement not to scratch it up too bad. Anyway, the point is, you want to have your lug nuts when it's time to put them back on. You're going to put them in something. I'm going to put them over here inside of the hubcap. Okay. Now, you got your tire. Alright. Keep in mind too, if you have a flat tire and you're on the side of a highway, what you're going to want to do is, if this is the lane and this is the emergency lane and then this is the dirt, you're going to need, if it's raining, you want to be able to use pavement under the tire to use the floor jack, or your jack, because your jack's going to be over here, okay? Your little jack that comes with the car. Well, if it's on the driver's side, what you want to do is at least have 2 tires still on the pavement. If you got to pull way off, always have 2 tires at least on the pavement. In other words, if you're in the emergency lane and you decide to get over a little bit, it's okay to have these 2 tires in the grass if you're not jacking up this side, or if you're jacking up this side and you know it's solid ground, solid enough to jack up. I would recommend stay on the lane and you'll be fine, and put on your flashers. So but you want to have always have this tire and that front tire on the pavement. I would say if you're using the jack on this side, or if you're using it on the other side, have that other side at least, if this has to go in the dirt to get you off a bit, always have those other 2 tires, the driver's side tire on the rear and on the front, on pavement, so you can get traction, so you don't get stuck in the, a lot of people change their tires and then they're stuck in the mud next to the highway. So use the emergency lane for that. I'm going to take this tire out of my way. Basically, putting a tire on is the reverse. You put it back on, you know, and what I do, I'll go ahead and show that. I put my 2 feet here under the tire to help me lift it up and to get it right. Then you'll put it on snug tight and tighten them cross pattern. Now, that's changing a tire. Now, to doing brakes, okay, for this you got a screwdriver on these. This is different than most cars. Okay, for this you're going to need a special tool. Well, you could use a Phillips head screwdriver, but somebody already has on this one a bit before we got the car, and then not so much on this one, and you can strip that out. This is an impact driver. Okay, 10 or 12 bucks for the cheap ones. This is a Popular Mechanics tool. They're great. Okay, when you push in and turn this way, okay, you see what I just did? Push in and turn this way on this tool. Okay, it also works with sockets. What you want to do is push in and turn to the left so it will take off, and then you push into to the right to tighten them. Okay, but you don't necessarily have to use this tool to tighten them as far as the hammer part. But what happens is it's spring loaded. When you hammer on the back side of this, if you have this kind of a car with these, if not, just disregard this part, but when you hammer, it spring loaded, it pushes to turn this. So in other words, when I've got it here, okay, not even using a hammer, just using my hand, what it's doing is it's trying to, you see how it already got it loose? When I push in with this, it actually turns the screwdriver for me. It's called an impact driver. You hit it with a hammer, that's the impact, and it drives whichever way you tell it to drive, either on or off. So, but these are actually likely hand tight, but because of the size of this bit, you want to use this. It will always grab if you use a driver. Otherwise, you might just strip the screw. It's good for working on motorcycles. It's the only tool, really, for taking the casings off motorcycle engines. Impact driver. Pick one up and keep it. Now, most cars do not have these screws to hold these things on. At least not the older cars. Just happens to be a Mazda. See? Those screws. Alright. So. Oh, and if you like my videos, hey, you know, subscribe, like, all that stuff. Share them with your friends. Teach your kids how to work on their cars so they're not on the side of the road doing it. You know, I mean, really? So, I'm just going to pull just a bit. I'm going to find out with you at the same time what I got behind here. I know I need brakes on this car. I'm just going to turn it a bit. This is just a metal flange behind here, but I'm just using it just a bit just to pull off the thing. You can actually tap on it with a hammer from the backside, but it ain't been very long since I'm going to use a little nubby here on the side here. Okay. You don't want to bend that flange behind it. So if it's too hard to take off, you know, usually you can just work them off by hand, back and forth. Like I said, we're finding out together, so it might take me a minute. I don't know. There we go. It lets loose, and then you just work it back and forth, back and forth. Don't try to pull straight off. Just back and forth. It'll come off. You know, no big deal. You don't fight it. Now, this looks good. However, just so you know, I can beat it here on the ground. Okay, what I do is like this. Not like this, but like this. That knocks a ring of dust there. You see? Okay, so I'm going to use brake parts cleaner and clean this up. Now the thing is, these drums wear, okay? And when these are really thin brake pads, you can't really tell the difference, but they're thin. They're shot. So it's time to change them. Well, they usually start squeaking if they get down to metal on metal. This one wasn't so much, but if they get metal on metal, they will cut grooves in this, and whenever you hit your brakes, it'll play it on these. It'll make a noise. It's kind of like a record player. Those grooves in there, any kind of scratches. Now, so you can have these turned, which is where they shave them, and it shaves them down a little bit, or you can just buy another one for about 30 bucks. Now, right now, I'm fine with this because I don't see a big lip here. Okay, there's really no lip here. You know, you can tell if something's been worn because there's a lip. That will actually make it to where you barely can get the thing off. All right, these were no big deal. So I'm gonna reuse these just how they are. I see no reason to worry about them right now. But if they're making a noise, you're metal on metal, especially the front, you're definitely, because they break a lot. Okay, especially in the front. The front's gonna be like 60% braking in the front. And I guess 40 in the back, or maybe it's 70 in the front, 30 in the back, whatever. So in the front, you will see lines like this on the rotor. Not so much on these, as long as you change them often, but you can tell how they're worn. So in the front, you definitely want to have the rotors turned every time, or it'll play it like a record player real bad, because it breaks a lot in the front, and you'll hear a, you know, it'll read every line in there like it's a record. Okay, back to what I'm doing. I'll probably move this in a bit so that you can see all the components, and then work on it from there. I can just set this here. The 2 screws that go in it, I'm just going to go ahead and set in it so they don't get lost. Impact driver, set it out of the way. Don't need my lug wrench right now. I'm going to set it out of the way, and we'll go. I'll bring you in a second, but I'm talking brakes. Alright, right now, brake shoes. Alright, one is the front, one is the rear. Okay, so one is bigger than the other usually, and that's the trick, is finding them. Now, let's see what we got here. These may be the same size here. Let's see what we got. No. Alright, so that shows it. Good. Glad I can teach you that. Look here. When you put them butt to butt, this one has got less brake, okay, than this one. Okay? Either way you look at it. You got metal to metal. Let's see, wait a second. No, they moved it. These are just off. One of them has more than the other. Let's turn right here. Well, see some of these Japanese cars. Let's see, let me get them all set up. It looks to me like they made them all pretty much the same. On this one, that one's just offset. Usually, though, at least on Chevrolets and everything else, the rear would be the bigger of the 2 brakes, and the front will be smaller, if I'm remembering correctly. But I always just check. And now, if you can't figure out if you've done something wrong, you can always look at the other side, because it's an exact copy of this one, except for, like I said, that's what you want to watch out for, is that the rear would be the longer brake. Looks like these are actually identical. Numbers on the side, 739. P 739, 5900, F. They made these exactly the same for this car. That's not normal. Usually, most cars, like I said, the rear would be the bigger or longer brake surface, and then this one on the front would be like shorter. Okay. Now, having said that, you're gonna need just a couple of tools. Let me bring this in. Okay, and now I'm going to show right now here the components here, best as I can. Alright, let's see, this being a little spring-loaded kind of thing. set my brake out that I'm going to change. It's going to be just like this. Alright. I'm going to make sure it's the right exact brake that I've got. Same as the old one. Everything, all the holes match up. Okay. Everything being the same. Yeah, so there's only like 1,000 springs to these things. Usually this is a different type of a push-in deal. But I'm going to take my brakes and I'm just going to set them down here on the ground just the way they go. Box up and sit on it for a second. Now, okay, these hold the brakes to the back. These springs that go across here, this being the wheel cylinder, and then these springs here that hold that being the emergency brake. A cable comes from the front, goes to the emergency brake. I was just basically trying to get comfortable where I'm sitting on this car here. So, you know, that's difficult. Here's what I'm going to have to do. I'm going to have to use a screwdriver to push in. All brakes being the same, all brakes being different. These are even more different than any I've seen. So I'm going to push in on this thing here. Okay, I'm going to try to show this. Turn this and then release. Okay? So that's how that works. Most of them are a circle. You push in and hold the pin from the back and turn, and then it pulls out. It's just a flat circle, looks about the size of a dime. This one's just a little different. Like I said, brakes are brakes are brakes. The back ones, everybody's scared to do back brakes. It's not that big a deal. Now there's another one on the front, but here's what we're going to do. I'm going to do this. I'm going to take off one side at a time, put the spring on it, okay? And usually I actually do the front because it's the simplest, okay? But I'm going to go ahead and do the back here. Now I'm going to take this spring. I hope you're able to see this here on the screen. But you know what? I'm going to... Okay, so now I've moved my camera in an effort to show this as best as possible, okay? So, got a different mount up under the camera and all that. Now, this can get tricky. Now, there's a... Usually, there's a adjustment thing here. I would think they all had them. This one's a little bit different, like I said. You just have to kind of look at each brake situation as being different. I think that this one's going to have to come off from the top. That might be the last thing I take off. So, for right now, I'm going to take this spring off. Okay, that retaining spring. Here's the trick. It goes into this long hole here. I'm going to go ahead and put it on. Alright, that same long hole back here on this brake. Alright, and just leave it there down here, hooked to this other long hole on the other brake, just for now. Okay. Now there's a spring on the bottom that goes across that retains both of them. I'm going to take that off of this side and leave it hanging down. And some brake shoes come with new components. Okay, so I'm just going to take this, I'm just going to leave it hanging down. Okay? Now, let's see what I can't do about this. That's a pin holding it in from the back. Pop that off. I'm going to need that out of the way in a second. Like I usually take the front off first. There's a reason I'm showing how to take the back off right now. Okay. That is the emergency brake, by the way. The clip for it. So I'm just gonna push this little clip out of the way, and then push it here, and then I'll try to show it best I can when I take it off. If I don't drop it, I dropped it. So here we go. Yeah, this one right here, that is horseshoe clip. Okay, it held the emergency brake pin here. Alright, we're going to set this out of the way, just down here on top of this brake, just for now. Alright, now what I want to do is I'm going to have to disconnect this bar here from here. That's spring loaded. Pull in, let a little pressure off, okay? Make it easier on myself. Now, so one more spring here. Okay, got that off, okay? Now, that spring, if I let it go, it's going to fall. So, I'm just going to set it, alright, down here, and I'm going to hook it to that hole where it was on the new brake. Okay. Now, it's always good to use those brakes down there to set your parts here. So, and I usually use like some locking pliers or a better pair of pliers, but right now I'm using this. So, whenever I take this off, I'm going to be full ready to hook it to my new brake down here. Alright, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that by picking up. What I'm going to do for now is pick up this brake and try to show you. Alright. See if I can do this, because I don't want to drop this little spring on it. Alright, I'm going to hold this up here. You see I got that spring that I talked about. Okay, alright, now what I'm going to do is when I take this off, I'm going to put this on right away. Okay, so that I show that, take this pair of pliers and this spring off. Now, this being the emergency brake, I'm going to pop that pin out by pushing back. As soon as I get the spring off, pop the pin back. No big deal. This thing here will come off, okay? I'm still holding this with these pliers, okay? Now, pick this up, put the pin back on, a little bit past that little lip. I need to make sure it goes past that lip, but that's okay. And then I can hook this. Well, okay, I'll put that on in a different second here. Let me go ahead and get this on. I'm gonna pick a fight with the brake. Make sure it goes. It has to go past where that retainer clip is, where that retainer clip holds it. Okay, this little pin came out. This is why everyone is pretty much scared to do back brakes, is because they fear them. I gotta work this in, I guess. The steel on this brake is different than the original steel, so that's a little problematic. Let's see. The hole in this one must have been a little bit machined a little bit bigger than that one. What I might actually do just for now, see, I want to show you, see how this goes in. See, sometimes you run into problems like that. See, that's real easy to go into that hole right there. Alright, and this one here is being really, it was a lot more difficult to, I got to get it past that. I got to work it so that it gets past it, so that C-clip, okay, that I talked about earlier. Okay, now to go ahead and have it on here doesn't hurt. Alright. Now, push this here back up, And now I gotta put that spring back. Okay, I'm not sure how good this camera is going to show it. Alright, so I'm going to add a little light to the situation. But I just got to put a couple springs back on, and I keep running out of memory space, all these videos I've done. So this spring here across the bottom has to be hooked into this brake, but this brake has to be behind here. So I've already put this retaining piece back on. I'm going to bump it a bit. You see how I bumped it a bit to get it close to there? This little spring down here, I'm going to hook it into the slot, and that all should hold that. But actually, you know what, let me go ahead and put the retaining clip on it just to hold pressure on the brake so it's not pulling it forward. Now, in order to do this, here's the good part. You don't even need the screwdriver now. You just go put this part on, okay, like that, like it's hanging down, okay, and put it through and hold it with your thumb just a bit. Use the pliers, and when you're pushing with your thumb, okay, you can actually push with the pliers too and turn it. So it's halfway on now. I mean, you could use the screwdriver, but it's just not as necessary at this point. Okay, but it's on there. Now, you want to line it up like that. Alright, now, all the springs being on except for this one and the top one. Go ahead and do this one. Pull it. Nope. Okay. You know what? It's being a pain. I'm just going to hook it here with the bottom end of these needle nose pliers. Put it into the hole, because it was being a pain. Now you see how I pulled it, like, you know, in. It's in the slot. It's in the slot. It's up top. It just needs to be lined up and down ways. You gotta make sure that they're lined up. You can beat them up and down a bit until they, as long as the drum goes on, and it'll all work itself out. But I try to get it as straight as possible. You know. All right. Now this top spring has to go back on, and for that I'm gonna use my finger pushing it this way and the pliers. I'm hoping I'm showing this good enough. I'm really trying to teach people here. So, you know what, maybe the camera's not in a good angle to see me do this. So, I'm just putting this back in the hole where it goes. And maybe I can do it one-handed. Hey, show it on camera. Look at that. Okay, and this just shows it on, basically. I took that spring right there, and, well, maybe I can show it, but I don't know. I don't have optimal lighting situation here, but alright, you see how it's in that slot, and it's in the slot that's the long slot over here. Okay, showing best I can. That slot over here, and the matching long slot on the opposite side. Alright. Alright, and real quick, the way you adjust this so that you can get the drum back on past the brakes is you're going to push out on this and push in on this to get it all the way in there. You see, it's got a gear on it, so you want to push this all the way in. That'll bring the brakes in. So you're going to use a screwdriver and a pair of pliers or something just to push in on this while you're spreading out on that with the screwdriver. Oh, there you go. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you want more videos. I'm trying to teach you how to work on cars and do brakes and that kind of thing, so I can save you money and help you keep a good, safe ride. Alright, thanks.